Hello, all of my spooky friends. Got another awesome video here for you with some amazing stories. Once again, I have some incredible cover art by the amazing Art of Salinas on Instagram. You should go check out his other work. I'm definitely going to continue to use him for my thumbnails in the future. He does some great stuff. Also, a gigantic thank you to all of the authors that allowed me to use their stories. Without them, I could not make my videos that I like making. Not good at talking. Only reading. Anyways, so I hope you all enjoy the video. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. And I usually reply to all of them unless you say something weird. And then I probably won't. But I most likely will. Have a great night. Once I got older, I really enjoyed wholesome, feel-good stories where the parents had great, inspirational advice that had a lasting impact on their child's life. Stuff that children could hold on to in hard times. You know, well, my mother used to say, or, like Dad always said, everybody has one. I'm sure you do too. A fond saying from a parent or relative that you heard a million times growing up and makes you feel warm and fuzzy. I have one. Something my mommy dearest said at least once a day. Not very wholesome or heartwarming, but certainly that has stood the test of time and repressed childhood memories. 4 unforgettable words. You deserve your cage. I stared into the darkened basement corner, the dimming 70-watt bulb doing little to chase the darkness away. The metal of the cage leaving marks on my pale 7-year-old body as I leaned forward against it. Silent tears drying on my face. Those tears, I learned, had to remain my secret. If they escaped the basement and Mama heard of their existence, I would be sorry. The darkness of the basement would probably give most 7-year-olds nightmares of monsters or ghosts, waiting to gobble them up the moment they went to sleep. Not me. Daddy taught me, before, when I was little, and before he left, to not be scared of monsters, because they weren't real. He said him and Mama would protect me from them if they were. But Daddy lied. They are real. Mama's a monster, and he left me. He can't protect me now. I heard a loud thud from the kitchen upstairs. Then I heard Mama cussing. I clutched the dolly Daddy had given me the night he left. Whenever you are sad, baby, or angry, or just hurtin', I want you to hug this dolly and tell her all your problems. Then you will feel better, okay? He told me. I hugged that dolly all night when he left. Mama got worse after Daddy left. She was angry a lot and would yell, then would start crying and couldn't stop for a long time. She would sleep an awful lot, and when she woke up, would get the bottle with the brown stuff in it from the cabinet and pour a big cup. That always made her more angry. The door to the basement flew open with a crash. I hugged that dolly with one hand and tried to wipe the tears away with the other. I smelled Mama before she reached the bottom of the stairs. She smelled like the brown stuff. I noticed she was carrying a bowl with her. I knew better than to act excited. I sat still as I could while Mama walked towards the cage. I pretended to be a statue, like in the museums Daddy took me to once. Mama looked like she had been crying, but when she saw me, I could see that she was angry too. Real angry. We didn't say anything to each other when she reached my cage. I looked at my dusty, bare feet, and I could feel her eyes burning into me. I knew if I spoke first or looked at her, it was over. There would be no food. I was afraid she would hear my stomach growling. I knew it was loud. It had been a while since Mama had brought me anything to eat. Take it and be fucking grateful, Mama said. "Yes, ma'am," I squeaked out. "Yes, ma'am." She mocked back. "You're just like your daddy, unfucking grateful. Never appreciate what I do around here. You're the damn reason he left. Always begging him for a new toy, or a new this, or a new that. Always pestering him, always underfoot. Never grateful for what you had, always wanting more. You ruined my goddamn life." I hugged my dolly as tight as I could. I tried not to cry. I really did. But I couldn't help it. "Unfucking believable," Mama hissed. "You got some nerve to cry after what you did? Making your daddy leave and you're gonna cry?" Mama opened the cage and threw the bowl at me. The contents landed in my lap and burned the tops of my feet. "You deserve your cage." Mama spat at me before she slammed the basement door shut. I cried that night for a good long while after I ate my dinner. I had to lick a lot of it off the floor. Dolly listened when I cried and got angry. Dolly never got upset when I told her I wished Mama would just leave like Daddy would. That I wished I never had to see her again. I didn't care that night if Mama heard me crying or not. I was angry. Angry at Daddy for leaving. Angry at Mama for being so mean all the time. And angry at myself. But I did not know why. Eventually, I cried myself to sleep holding Dolly. Life with Mama continued like this. Every day, Mama would remind me, "You deserve your cage." And every night, I would cry to myself to sleep with Dolly. I had no way to tell the difference between day or night. No way to keep track of time, except when Mama brought me food, which was so sporadic at best. Mama would sometimes come down the stairs, smelling even more strongly like the brown stuff than normal. When that would happen, I knew nothing I did would make her not angry. Sometimes she would throw her empty bottles at my cage and laugh as I scrambled as far back into my cage as I could. Every now and again, Mama would wake me up by dumping a bucket of ice-cold water in my cage. "You smell just like a fucking pig. No, worse than a pig. You smell like a pile of old shit. Your daddy left you because you smelled so fucking bad. You deserve your cage." After those times, Dolly was always there to listen. Dolly continued to hold my secrets. She would never tell Mama all the terrible things I thought about her. All the things I wished would happen to her. Dolly was the only friend I had in my cage. In that basement. In that hell. And Dolly listened. I counted Mama's steps as she came down the stairs. There were 16 steps from top to bottom. But something happened when Mama got to number 3. She screamed out, and I didn't hear her footsteps anymore. I heard a crunch. Mama laid real still at the bottom of the steps. Her face was looking right at me, staring at me. I wondered if her neck got hurt laying like that. Her leg looked funny too. I didn't move for a long time. I tried real hard to be a statue. I didn't know if Mama was trying to trick me. She had done that before. I just stayed real still, waiting for her to get up. I didn't want to make her angry. I woke up real sore, Dolly laying in my lap. I could still see Mama laying there, still looking at me. "Mama?" I whispered. "I'm sorry I fell asleep. Please don't be angry. You can get up now. I didn't fall for your trick." Mama didn't move. They found me and Mama like 2 days later. The sheriff's office showed up because I hadn't been to school for 2 months. When nobody answered the phone or the doorbell, they got suspicious and looked in the windows. When they saw food on the table in the kitchen and the TV on, they got even more suspicious and busted the door down. The sheriff explained as best he could to me that my Mama was dead. He told me I would never have to go back to that house. I would never have to go back to that cage or in that basement. He stroked my hair and told me it was okay as I cried, tears of joy for the first time in my life. He asked if I was hungry and went to get me some food. I hugged Dolly tighter than ever that day. We never have to go back, Dolly. We never have to see Mama again. We can be happy. I'll never have to think any more bad thoughts about Mama. They came true. She's gone. We are free. I whispered to Dolly. And on that day, in front of that house that would haunt me forever, surrounded by police, sheriffs, and EMTs, I hugged Dolly. Dolly, who heard every fear, caught every tear, heard every secret wish I had to be free, every wish that Mama would leave. Dolly, who kept me company in the darkest hour of my life, and witnessed my abuse, and saw my soul bare, and listened always, finally talked back. You're welcome. Agatha sits in her rocking chair as she listens. It's all she's done for the last 60 years. She listens. She lost her vision as a young girl, same age as Sam, her caretaker. Sam had only been with Agatha for a week, but had truly grown to love the old woman. Even though Agatha never spoke to her, she felt a connection that she had never known before. No one knew why Agatha never spoke. Far as the doctors could tell, she had a fully functioning tongue and vocal cords. She simply chose to never speak. What seemed clear was that something had traumatized Agatha as a young woman. Something traumatized her so bad that she blinded herself with chemicals and refused to ever speak again. Despite the lack of an ability to see, as well as the willingness to speak, Agatha too felt close to Sam. Subtle body language and slight holdings of hands were all Agatha needed to communicate to Sam how she felt. Agatha felt safe with Sam, and Sam felt love for Agatha. On this night, however, a look of confusion had come over Agatha's face. She turns her head to the left, and then to the right. She cannot understand what is happening right now, and her feelings are mixed. Sam? She whispers for the first time in 60 years. At that moment, Sam is admiring herself in a mirror. She was wearing an old pair of glasses that were kept in a box in the attic. Curious, she brought the box downstairs and asked Agatha if she could see what was inside. Seeing no problem with this, Agatha had waved her hand in a go-for-it motion. After removing the lid, Sam picked up the old bifocals and placed them on her face. At that exact moment, she saw the look of shock on Agatha's face, and as her name left the old woman's lips, she looked up and saw something behind her. Outside the living room window was a black, humanoid figure. It was tall and skinny, with a pale, white, dagger-toothed smile that curled the edges above its bright red eyes. What the fuck? Sam said in a tone that didn't know whether to be scared, confused, or some combination of the two. Sam, Agatha said again, this time, changing her whisper to a squeaky croak. Agatha, answered Sam, completely shocked at the fact that this old woman was speaking for the first time in 60 years. She walked over and held her small, frail hands. There's something outside. I'm sorry, Agatha croaked, the sound of anguish in her voice. I'll be right back, Sam responded, not sure what to say or even what Agatha had to be sorry about. I have to make sure the doors and windows are locked. She pulls away. I'm sorry, Agatha cried again. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know. Sam ignores Agatha again, making sure to focus on the emergency situation at hand. She looks at the window again and notices the figure is still outside, but is slightly closer now. Sam goes around the house, fully securing all doors and windows. But as she looks out the kitchen door leading to the backyard, she notices another one. Or is it the same one? Sam isn't even sure, but it looks exactly the same. Tall and dark, with a terrifying smile and eyes like a demon. It's even closer to the house than the one from the living room window. She lets out a shriek when she sees it and rushes back to the living room. After she is sure the kitchen is secured, she looks out the living room window again and screams once more when she sees the figure yet again, even closer now. Agatha is crying now, but then calms herself. "Sam," she says again, "you have to close your eyes." "What?" Sam replies. "No, I have to call the police." Sam pulls out her phone and shouts in anger when she realizes the battery is completely dead. "What?" She screams. "No, I just charged the stupid thing." Having no need for a phone, as Agatha hadn't spoken in 60 years, Sam had no means of calling for help. "Sam!" Agatha screams weakly. Sam stops and looks at the old woman. "You have to close your eyes." "Why?" Sam asks, frustrated. "Because he will keep getting closer the longer you keep them open," Agatha says as she places her face in her hands. Trying to wrap her head around what Agatha just said, she walks over to the old woman and kneels before her. "Agatha, what is going on?" "I will tell you, but you have to close your eyes, please." "Okay," Sam says, and she does. 60 years, Agatha began. 60 years ago, I first saw that thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's here. But I do know that if it gets you, it will kill you. Just like it killed my brothers all those years ago. Sam didn't know what to say. She didn't even know that Agatha had brothers, let alone that they had died 60 years ago. Agatha continues. "We had this friend, Christina, who at the time we thought was just strange. People around town said that she was a witch, but we didn't ever believe that. We just thought she was weird, and so one day we felt bad and invited her over. At first, things were great. We got along great, and my older brother Tommy had even developed a crush. Christina liked him too, so they started to date. And eventually, Tommy proposed to her. Then one day, he comes over in a panic, saying, 'It's true. It was all true.' Apparently, Tommy had walked in on her performing some kind of ritual, and he panicked. He ran over here, and he said she was a witch, and that we all had to stay away from her. Soon there was a loud knocking on the door, and I could hear Christina pleading for Tommy to open the door and to talk to him. Tommy refused for the longest time, until we heard John, our youngest brother, at the door too. We could hear him asking Christina what was wrong, but before she could answer, Tommy swung the door open and pulled John inside. But before he could shut the door, Christina shoved her way inside too. I had never seen such hatred in someone's eyes before. Her eyes turned red, and her skin became black like charcoal. She waved her hands, and some kind of force pulled all three of us towards her. In the vilest voice I had ever heard, she said, "You're no better than the rest of them." Then she spit spits in our faces. We all wore glasses, or else she would have gotten our eyes. But now, that makes so much more sense. Sam was starting to piece it all together, too. Agatha continues. Christina then just leaves, and we're all standing there in shock. Suddenly, we begin to see them. Each of us only saw one specifically for us. But there was the black figure you saw just now. They started out a good distance away, but as long as your eyes are open, they get closer and closer. We thought there was more than one because we would see them out of the front window and make our way to the back, and they'd be there too. But there is absolutely only one. One for each of us. I know this because as it got closer, they got inside, past all the doors and locks, and they just kept getting closer. When they were in the same room as us, no matter which direction we turn our heads, it would be in our direct line of sight as long as it was somewhere we could see it. It could phase through any walls or objects that were in its path. So locking ourselves in a closet or anything was pointless. Before too long, the closer they got, the faster they got. So we all just sat there with our eyes completely shut. We knew that the second we opened our eyes, we were dead. Tommy was the first to experience the consequences. He said, "Oh, thank God." And the next thing we hear is him screaming and crying. Then nothing. We couldn't figure out why he did it. We sat there for I don't know how long when I heard John say, "Mom, is that you?" Before I could tell him to keep his eyes closed, he started screaming and crying just like Tommy did. And then nothing. I sat there alone, not trusting any of the voices that thing used to pretend to be. It knew every person I'd ever known and used every one of them. It even touched me, patting me on the back, saying, "It's okay, we're fine, it's gone," using Tommy's voice. But I knew better. Eventually, I got up and shoved my way past it, feeling my way around the house. I tried to get away from it, but it just stayed with me. I eventually found myself in the laundry room. The entire time, it wouldn't shut up. It just kept saying everything it could think of to get me to open my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I did the only thing I could think of. I felt around until I found the bleach, and I poured it into my eyes. The pain was unbelievable, and even as I screamed, I could still hear it. Instead of trying to get me to open my now useless eyes, it was now insulting me. It called me all sorts of horrible things and said so many horrible things to me. I just lay there and sobbed until someone found me. I guess Tommy and John's bodies weren't there because they were ruled as a missing person. I kept getting question after question, but I never spoke again. I had nothing to say because no one would ever believe me. Even after all these years, it kept talking. Agatha let out a deep sigh. Until tonight. Sam's heart dropped at the realization. "No," she whispers. "No, no, no. This isn't real. This can't be real. You're crazy. You're just a crazy old bitch. And there's a couple of psychos trying to get in." Sam opens her eyes and runs to the kitchen, grabbing a knife. Agatha can almost feel her heart break. As Sam grabs the knife, she looks out the window and screams out as she sees the horrifying face directly in front of the glass. She turns and runs to the living room and screams again. Standing in the living room, right in front of the front door, stands a tall, black demon. is even more horrifying up close. Sam turns to run up the stairs, but there it is again. No matter which direction she turns, it is there, moving closer and closer. She turns to the front door demon once again and runs at it, swinging the knife, but it goes right through it as if it's not there. She backs up and turns to Agatha. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Agatha repeats over and over again, not realizing the demonic body standing through her as though she were some kind of hologram. Sam falls to her knees and sobs, squeezing her eyes shut. Through Agatha's repeating apologies, she can hear the other voices around her. She hears her mother say, "Open your eyes, sweetie. Mommy's here." She can hear Jeff, her boyfriend, say, "I'm here. I won't let anything happen. Just open your eyes, babe." She can hear Agatha, through the actual Agatha's crying, say, "Sam, it's gone. It gave up. You're safe. You can open them now." She can even hear the sound of a dog that sounds exactly like her own, and can even feel its tongue, like on her face. Sam and Agatha stay there for what seems like an eternity. The voice never leaves Sam, and the guilty feeling for passing this curse never leaves Agatha. Eventually, Sam reaches her breaking point. She grips the knife hard and slowly places it to her left eye. As she prepares herself, she can hear what sounds like the door being broken down. She can hear the sounds of multiple footsteps and what sounds like the police. She then hears a loud, commanding voice. "Put down the weapon and put your hands on your head." She drops the knife and does so. She sobs, not daring to open her eyes. She can hear another voice say from across the room, "She's gone." It hadn't even occurred to her that she could no longer hear Agatha's sorrows, as the demonic voices had been relentless. Even now, she sobs even more. Sam feels an arm grab her, and she picks herself up. Suddenly, an idea pops into her head. "The glasses!" she yells. "Look at the glasses!" She can hear mumbles of confusion. Soon, she hears the sound of someone walking around the room. "These old things?" a voice says. "Yes!" she exclaims. "You have to look through them. It will explain everything." Sam becomes anxious as she waits for the voices to stop, until finally, they do. Silence. Absolute silence. She sighs in relief and slowly opens her eyes. Janice dipped her hand into the lukewarm water of the bathtub. Just right. Not too hot, not too cold. Water was still flowing from the faucet, and she squeezed bubble bath directly into the stream for maximum bubbling. She stirred the water and smiled as she enjoyed the fragrance. It was the scent of bubble gum, and the twins enjoyed it. Kathy and Kevin were 4 years old, and they loved bath time. Both were fair-haired blondes with royal blue eyes, and they were the joy of her life. They'd been premature at birth, and they'd both suffered from just about every preemie illness on the books. Jaundice, pneumonia, and anemia had threatened to snuff out their fragile little lives before they'd begun, but the twins were fighters and had proven the medical staff wrong time and time again. Kathy was the firstborn of the twins, and she entered the world. She did so kicking and screaming. She was a tough, loud daredevil that rarely took no for an answer. She was rather fond of jumping, anywhere and everywhere. It had started simple at first, jumping on Janice's queen-size bed while attempting to touch the ceiling, jumping from the couch, the toy chest, and from the third, then fourth, and then recently fifth step of the stairs. Janice once walked into the living room and found her brave little girl squatting on top of the bookshelf, preparing to leap onto the plush brown sofa below. That one had earned her a timeout and no dessert after supper. Yet, she still found opportunities to test her courage and Janice's sanity. Kevin, on the other hand, was timid, quiet, and reserved. He spoke in a somber and almost melodramatic tone that was often difficult to hear over his sister's boisterous yelling and shouting. He loved to read and was already well beyond his peers. Janice made 2 trips to the local library every week just to keep his appetite for books satisfied. He also enjoyed drawing, and if he didn't have his nose in a book, he could usually be found contentedly sketching dinosaurs at the kitchen table. The refrigerator was covered in his masterpieces, and Janice found it cute that he'd name every one. Her personal favorite was pterodactyl pineapples. Apparently pterodactyls used pineapples as grenades, dropping them on the heads of tiny tyrannosauruses in the area. Although he'd been potty trained at the same time as Kathy, he had routinely wet the bed several times a week. About 4 months ago, his accidents had abruptly ended, much to his own relief and to Janice's. He would be starting kindergarten soon, and she was relieved that he'd gotten his bladder under control. As a single working mother, she couldn't afford to leave work for an accident. The 3 of them barely survived on her meager income as a paralegal, and even missing a single day of work would be disastrous to her budget. Janice was an unlikely mother. In a perfect world, she could have been a model. Like her children, she was blonde-haired with smooth, flawless skin and gorgeous blue eyes. From junior high and up until her pregnancy, she was the envy of every girl in school and the dream of every boy. When she'd gotten pregnant at 16, her parents had all but disowned her. The boyfriend had abandoned her, and she suddenly found herself very much grown up. Thankfully, her aunt and uncles had taken her in. But she was forced to drop out of school. The taunting, ridicule, shame, and embarrassment had become far too much for her to bear, and her grades suffered because of it. After the twins were born, her aunt insisted that she finish school and go to college. By the time the twins were nearly 2 years old, she'd obtained her general equivalency diploma and began to pursue her dream to become a lawyer. She craved her independence and despised relying on her family for everything, so when a position opened up at the local law firm, she took it. She worked during the day and studied at night. As a paralegal, she was getting valuable hands-on experience that would serve her well in the future, but the paycheck sucked. Janice was a devoted and attentive mother, and she did the best she could. Although money was tight, every weekend she would take the twins to McDonald's. They were much too young to understand why she didn't order anything for herself. After their lunch, she would visit the local flea market. She gave each of them a $1 bill, and they could spend it however they wanted. Kevin almost always spent his $1 on books or crayons or similar items, but Kathy was unpredictable. She had once bought a fishing lure, and on another occasion, an 80s disco exercise video. Her latest purchase was a rubber duck. Janice was apprehensive when her daughter pointed at the faded and grimy yellow duck. She tried to convince her stubborn daughter that it was old and gross, but Kathy wouldn't hear it. She was enamored with the duck and had to have it. To prevent a legendary tantrum of epic proportions, Janice acquiesced on the condition that Kathy allow her to sanitize it. Kathy agreed. The rubber duck was baptized in Prevails, and her daughter was happy, and that was important. Now, as Janice filled the bathtub for her kids, she picked up the duck and grinned. She couldn't quite understand what her daughter found so special about it. Even after she'd scrubbed it with rubbing alcohol, it still bore evidence of its previous owner. The words "bath poem" were still prominent on the bottom of the duck, having been scribbled in permanent marker some time before. What the fuck is a bath poem, she wondered. The paint on his eye was worn almost completely away. His beak appeared to be slightly melted. Who the hell would do that and why? Which made it appear somewhat lopsided. And someone had added a funny little mustache in the same black ink as well. What she didn't like most about the rubber duck was his mischievous, shit-eating grin. She knew she was being silly, but that goddamn duck looked creepy as hell. Sinister, even. Janice tossed the duck into the swirling water and told the kids it was bath time. They came running from the living room, where a rerun of Rugrats had been playing. Janice had to remind Kathy for the millionth time not to jump into the water, and she had to gently pry a library book from Kevin's grubby little hands. Once they were in the tub, she quickly shampooed their hair and then left them to play in the tepid water for a little while. This was one of the few moments in her day where she could sit in front of her television in relative silence and enjoy a cranberry vodka. It was her only treat to herself, and she was, usually, very sparing with the vodka. The twins were old enough that they didn't need to be directly supervised in the bathtub anymore. Although Janice was partially tuned into a new episode of Family Guy, her motherly radar was active. For a little while, at least. This particular day was a Friday, payday. After work, she'd picked up the twins from daycare and stopped by the bank to deposit her check. She pulled up to the drive-thru window, exchanged the usual formalities with a flamboyant red-headed teller, and plucked the envelope containing her check from her battered pleather purse. When she opened the envelope, she tweezed her fingers inside to pull out the check and was surprised to find 2 additional items. A $100 bill and a Post-it note that read, "Janice, you're doing a wonderful job, and I notice. You deserve this. Get a sitter, go out for a drink, or order a pizza and share with the kids. Either way, enjoy yourself and have a great weekend. Barbara." Janice's eyes welled with tears as she read the neat cursive handwriting of her boss. Barbara was a beast in the courtroom, but she had a heart of gold. Janice read the note 3 more times before she finally realized the teller's voice had been calling to her through the tinny, crackling speaker. "Janice, are you making a deposit today?" She began to speak and hesitated. When was the last time she had seen a $100 bill? Hell, when was the last time she even held a $100 bill? She couldn't remember. So many thoughts were swirling around in her head that it became difficult to focus on any one thing. Her mind was rapidly considering all of the things that she could do with that extra money. And after another moment's hesitation, she made a quick decision. "Sorry, Leo, I was a little confused. Give me a second." She reached out the window and grasped the little tube. She opened it up, deposited the check and the bill, and sent it back to the teller. Leo opened the tube and, seeing the contents, asked Janice what she would like to do with it. Janice was no fool. Money didn't grow on trees, and she wasn't about to waste such a wonderful and much-needed gift. "Leo, deposit the check and $50 from that 100, okay?" "You got it, Jan." She'd ultimately decided that it made sense to save half and to enjoy half. Hadn't Barb even said that on the Post-it note? You deserve this, enjoy yourself, and more importantly, share with the kids. On the way home, she made 2 additional stops, McDonald's and the liquor store. When they returned home, the twins were ecstatic with their Happy Meals, and she relished every bite of her own quarter-pounder. She washed it down with vodka and a splash of cranberry juice. Why not? It was Friday. She was celebrating her own special way. She fucking deserved it. Over the next few hours, she began to gradually increase the amount of vodka in her glass. She wasn't the kind of person that drank to get drunk, but tonight she fully intended to do so. She wanted to wait until after the twins were safely tucked into bed before she did, but that's not what happened at all. Janice wasn't sure when she passed out, but when she came to, she was almost immediately sobered by the overwhelming and deafening sound of utter silence in the apartment. She looked around herself and noticed the entire bottle of vodka lay empty on the coffee table. Did I drink all of it? She wondered. Well, of course she had. Who else would have drank it? The television was off, so she must have tucked the kids into bed already. But she didn't remember doing that. Hell, she couldn't remember anything. She snatched her phone from the end table and was shocked to discover that it was nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. She peeled herself from the couch and wobbled toward her children's bedroom. As she passed the bathroom, a dim Cookie Monster light cast an eerie, shape-shifting shadow into the hall. Out of the corner of her eye, she thought that something inside looked weird and unfamiliar. She stopped and turned around, and as she entered the bathroom, she reached around the wall and fumbled with the familiar switch that would bring the overhead lights in the bathroom to life. As the fluorescent bulbs flickered and buzzed reluctantly, she stood in the doorway, casting a quivering silhouette behind her. She was literally overcome with paralysis, shock, and sheer horror. Blood dripped from the ceiling. It ran down the walls. It was matted into the silky blonde hair of her precious little angels. Their blue eyes had been gouged out and were now bobbing in the murky red bubblegum-scented water. She took a single step towards the bathtub, and her foot came down on a handful of teeth. Ropey blue intestines were draped along the shower curtain rod, swollen with the remains of cheeseburgers and french fries. Janice couldn't tell where Kathy ended and Kevin began. Their bodies were so mangled and torn that apparently they'd almost flattened somehow. Fragments of bone and gelatinous brain matter speckled the mirror and the vanity. A severed foot had been tossed thoughtlessly into the toilet bowl, the red blood and blue cleanser pod creating an almost inky black porridge. And on the end of the bathtub sat that shit-eating rubber duck, grinning at her. There wasn't a single speck of blood on him. Snip. Ah yes, the clipping of a single leaf could lift an arrangement from mediocre to spectacular. My smile grew as I took in my masterpiece. Not a single leaf or petal out of place. The flowers curling delicately together like they grew that way. I took in a final inhale before applying my mask. The scent was so sweet, almost intoxicating. Almost perfect. I murmur lovingly to the blooms, my now gloved hands caressing the puddles and leaves. Almost. I pull out a small glass vial, but check my mask before I uncork it. It looks so dainty and delicate in my hand, yet its power is mighty. A drop slips between pink rose petals. Another soaks into the heart of a gerbera daisy. And a final one settles into a frilly carnation. Now, I whisper, the glass vial clinking back into its place among my tools. You're perfect now. The arrangement was pink, vibrant, and full of life. The perfect gift for a young girl from her perfect father. Are you done yet? A sharp voice interrupts my thoughts. Dr. Robertson is waiting. Just wrapping up. I call back cheerfully, not bothering to glance behind me at the girl who worked at the cash register. All I'd see is bored eyes rolling back and a boring face. Teenagers always thought they ruled the world. I took my time wrapping the arrangement, first a protective plastic covering, and then the bright wrapping paper, topped with a frilly pink bow. The wrapping itself was a piece of art, the perfect concealment for the bouquet underneath. The good doctor did not like to wait, that much was clear, by the way he grumbled about it when I presented him with the package. How do I know it's even good? He looked down at me critically, but I returned his look with a pleasant smile. If it isn't, you know where to call. He all but ignored my response, paying and leaving the shop quickly. I glanced at the girl behind the cash register, who didn't notice as she texted away on her phone. I'm all done, I said, and she barely acknowledged me. I took a deep breath when I left the shop, knowing I didn't have long to get where I wanted to go. I walked quickly, making my way to one of the nicer restaurants in town, the kind where you needed a reservation. For one, I made a reservation for 5:30. I gave my name, and I was seated at my small table. I took in the small, fake rose stuck in a glass vase critically and wrinkled my nose. Nice place indeed. Luckily, I had a good view. It didn't take long for a large table festooned with pink decorations to fill up with guests. The star of the party seated herself at the head of the table, cozying into her chair like it was her throne. A pile of presents laid before her, a familiar package right near the front. Daddy! Her voice was clipped, high and bratty. I want to open those now, before dinner. Of course, sweetheart, he said, and everyone turned to her eagerly. I almost scoffed. She was a child, barely 14, and she ran the adults at the table like they were puppets. Her eyes moved greedily over the presents before her. And my wrapping had done the trick, because her greedy little hands reached out for that first. Oh, I know what these are. She smiled at her father, the good doctor, and opened the package carefully. It was their tradition, apparently, for her to get flowers from her doting old daddy every year on her birthday. They're so pretty. I smiled, admiring my work even now at a distance. The flowers really were lovely, and my smile grew when she lowered her face into the blooms, inhaling deeply. Oh, roses are my favorite. She plucked up the largest rose, my favorite one in the bouquet, and sniffed deeply. My smile grew. She tore into the next parcel, some designer sweater that made her squeal. But the next, she shook her head a little, as if clearing it. I watched her pink cheeks growing paler, and she looked at her dad with big eyes before suddenly collapsing onto the table in a fit, her mouth foaming. I sat back, satisfied, watching as chaos unfolded in the restaurant. While everyone was in the midst of panic, I slipped away, heading home to pour myself a celebratory glass of wine. I sat in my daughter's room, smoothing my hands over her blanket and holding her favorite stuffed bear on my lap. I wondered what Dr. Robinson was thinking, what he was feeling. The loss of a child was unlike any other. I knew better than anybody, thanks to his careless misdiagnosis of my beautiful little girl's illness. And now he would know my pain as well. He could carry the burden of loss, just like I was. I finished my glass of wine slowly, looking around my daughter's room before retreating to my own. I had to work the next day, the next week. My time would be filled with flower arrangements and bouquets. I kept a small TV on in my workspace through the week, tuned into news stations. What a tragic story for a popular family. Their daughter taken from them so suddenly. The coroner was struggling to find a cause, but I had done my work well. It had taken me years to develop the right formula, potent, but hard to trace. A lot of small animals were buried in my backyard. There was a graveyard of all the test subjects. As I sat and watched Dr. Robertson tearfully give a short interview on the local news channel, yet another order came in for Saturday. A big pink bouquet. A gift to give in sympathy to the grieving family. I smiled and got to work. Hundreds of flowers would be shipped out on Saturday, along with my own special touch. I am not ignorant, though. I know that something like this will gather attention, and I know that it will be likely traced to me. One dead girl is nothing, but an entire church of mourners? That will catch everybody's attention. It's all right, though. I have a plan. The flowers will be ready to ship Friday, and then I will return home. I feel at peace with the revenge I have gotten, and I am ready to slip away and join my daughter, wherever she is. Yes, I realize I won't be around to see the results of my work, but that doesn't matter now. I saw what I needed to see in Dr. Robertson's eyes already, and that makes me happy. For now, though, I have to get back to work. There's way too much greenery among these beautiful pink flowers. Snip,